morning.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Martin?
I'm good. Thank you for joining me.
My name is Andrea Maida, and my business is Pilates Andrea. I teach online Pilates education in
Mhm.
classes and workshops.
Amazing. How long have you been doing the online thing? Has that been a pivot that you had to make, or is this something you've been doing for a long time?
A little bit. I actually had been teaching a handful of online clients. When I worked at Vintage Pilates in the
Okay.
early teens, they offered online lessons as part of their way to better yourself and get into the work. And so I had started teaching them there. And then
Hmm.
it really wasn't until someone came to visit me from out of town and wanted to find a way that they could get, still have the feeling of being in the studio. And I was like, oh, wait, I teach online lessons.
Yes.
I do that for other people. I should do that.
I should probably do it for me. Exactly.
Yeah. And so I had a handful of that going on, but then the change to all my local people coming online,
Mhm.
it wasn't seamless, but it wasn't a huge leap either.
I hear you on that.
Yeah.
That's the honest answer because people are like, oh, it's so seamless and everything just went so smooth. I'm like, not for everybody. So,
True.
where are you located? Where's your studio?
I'm located just north of San Diego in a beach town called Solana Beach, and I
Okay.
have my Pilates studio as part of my home.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, yeah. So, your state is closed right now for the most part, or is it?
Yes, I've been kind of cautious with reopening because it is in my
It's your
home.
home. Yeah.
And so I believe we're having, outdoor dining, maybe even indoor dining, and limited capacity with inside exercise. And I think we have outside exercise as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So primarily for you in your space, you're just kept it mainly online.
Yes, I'm fully online. And
Okay.
I sort of imagine that as we get into the summer and the early fall, that I'll start seeing people in the studio, but I still feel like I'm like imagining into nowhere. Like I think
Right.
that's going to happen, but
But yes.
and I'm kind of planning for it, but I
Mhm.
don't know with certainty. But I guess that's kind of per usual.
That's like everyone's sentiment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I remember Vintage doing online classes, and there's trainers that back in the day were doing like Skype sessions and
Yes,
that
and that's
sort of
what it
thing.
was originally. It was not Zoom, it was Skype at that point.
Right. And feeling like, is it going to be that good? Like, how much drop off is there from a live to a Skype session? I'm sure a lot of people
Hmm.
felt like that, but like, how did you address that when you had someone on a Skype session, when you felt that there might be that bit of skepticism, like, how good is this going to be?
Well, I feel a little bit lucky in that Vintage Pilates sort of fielded all those questions in my
Okay.
early foray into online lessons.
Hmm.
And I have to say that it's not that when I started doing them, I didn't think that they weren't going to be the same, but I have to say I was really amazed at what you could see, and that
Yes.
even if you saw something that you thought you saw, you could ask a question about it. So
Yes.
the really only stressful thing was the Wi-Fi situation. If suddenly you're
The
teaching someone
connection.
about
Yes.
moving and there's no moving going on, and then you're like,
Yes.
um, but I did notice having online clients who were primarily teachers at,
Hmm.
at the beginning.
Yes.
Um, I did notice that maybe it wasn't as regular like clockwork compared to a client that was not a teacher. Things come
Yes.
up and we can also work out
That's
ourselves and,
yes.
you know,
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, and I see like Joel's comment just came up and he said,
oh,
I always got my butt kicked via Skype from Vintage Pilates.
yeah, yeah,
Right? But
yeah,
now and that I take that with a grain of salt because Joel's a hard worker, right? Like he owns his work. He's a teacher, all these different things. So
yes,
he can appreciate the value of the person teaching, internalize that work and move, right? So the dialogue's a
yes.
little bit different with someone who signed up for sessions in line, like live, and now they have to move to online and they're sitting there like, okay, what's this going to look like, right?
Yes, yes. But Martin, that was my favorite part, I have to
What's it?
say.
Okay.
Yes, because I don't know if this is a California thing, but I feel like there's a lot of sort of paraphernalia of the social engagement when people come in person that
Yes.
kind of can be attractive as well as the workout. Let's say the social interaction, the getting
Yes.
together, the chatting. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Mhm.
But I feel like when that element went away,
Yes, it got
that
peeled
really
away.
separated the men from the boys, for lack of a better expression. Like
Yes.
I felt like it showed me who the people that were invested in their workout as the
Hmm.
primary reason. And I kind of always made a joke that I when people would come to my house and we would have conversation, not that I didn't want to chit chat, but I always felt like, oh, someday maybe they'll be more excited to see the reformer than to see me. They'll be like, oh yeah, hey,
Yes.
how you doing? I'm going over there.
Let's get to work. Right. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So this
That's
has
so
given
funny.
people like, I can't hover. They're not in my space.
Hmm.
I've literally put it in their hands. So
Yes. I have this like flashback of those clients that I have where there's some people who come in and they want to chat. And I'm like, okay, let's get to work, right? And
yes.
then there'll be someone who comes in and I'm trying to just engage them just to get them connected and forget about their day. And like, okay, what's next? Okay, what now? Okay, I'm like,
Mm.
oh, okay, you know what I mean? It's so funny how you have to shift with every person that comes in. And there's times that you want to have a conversation and they're like, okay, what's next? And you're like, oh, right, we're working right now.
Yeah, they're all
Okay.
business, right?
Yeah, they're all almost like
Yeah.
too much business. And you know that you have to get them to turn off a second, you know? So,
Mm. Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Oh,
that's
they're
so,
sort of that like they've got it. Like they need
they
minimal
think they got it.
instruction and
Yeah,
they got this. Yeah.
yes, yes. But yeah, so that's interesting. So the online work that you're doing now, are there a lot of people that you've had, how can I put it? Do you have any people that have now connected with you that you haven't seen in person at all, like ever? Like they're
Oh,
just strictly
yes.
online? Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
And how does that go? What's the process like for them?
Well, that was really I didn't foresee that coming. I kind of, at the beginning of when our industry changed, I sort of only saw the hours that went away, let's say.
Hmm.
But I was really surprised that people, some teachers that I didn't know, like started to pop into classes. And
Yes.
I, yes, I now teach lots of people that I've never met in person.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
which
fantastic.
which I don't really believe that I haven't met them in person. Like there's part of me that's like, oh yeah, I know that person, and probably
Yes.
it'll be weird when I see them in person, but
Right.
it doesn't really feel disconnected, I guess, because we're used to this way of interacting.
Yes, exactly. And actually, I was going to say that earlier when you were talking about taking in those people that were live online, how we get to see new things with our old clients as well. Like that was a
Yeah.
fascinating experience for me. It's like, a lady who I've taught for probably 5 or 6 years doing our first virtual class is like, can you turn your foot for a second? Like, how come I've never seen that before? So I think about the patterns of how we teach and how we float around a room. Like myself coming from from a personal training and a sport conditioning background, I was always taught you coach from 360 degrees. So you're
Mm.
always moving. You don't just settle or sit down and watch it move. Like you're just always scanning the person and working the room. So I teach my Pilates from 360 degrees as well. So I was like shocked that I had missed this one cue with this person that I've had forever because we had gone online. So now it's great because now I obviously see that one thing, but I was really at the same time surprised at that there were still things that I'd been missing that this new vantage point, brought to my attention.
Yes, and I too was used to like having an active job and walking around and seeing, not really staying very stationary and moving around and seeing all angles.
Yes.
But I have to say, my tendency, and maybe other people are like this too, I tend to like zoom
You
in
like to
a little
zero in on
bit,
something? Yeah.
maybe, pardon the pun, but maybe to a fault. And I feel like now that
Hmm.
everyone's in there, you get geometry of the exercise and the geometry of the person in relation to the
Yes.
apparatus if they're on something. And I feel like that
Hmm.
that kind of speaks to me in a different way, which I
Yes.
didn't anticipate, that it would be like, oh cool,
Right.
they're in a little box.
I know it. Yeah, it's true. It's like a pleasant surprise. And I was like, I get to see things from a whole different perspective, and it gets us sharper with our cues. Like the sense of like, imagine my hand is here, or like
Yes.
we have to dig deeper into our own toolbox, and we can't use our same comfortable cues and verbs, verbiage and stuff like that, right? So,
Yes. Yes. And
it,
certain, there's certain exercises that I've been finding myself teaching, maybe to someone who's new to the exercise, or the choreography is not fully in place. But some
yes,
of them that I thought, oh my gosh, like if I were there, I would have a hand and a push and I'd be
yes,
done. Like, but to search for the words for like,
yes,
that are accurate yet not too many. So that's been,
yes.
it kind of makes me laugh because I'm just like, when did you think you'd be like, landing an airplane teaching this exercise?
Yes. I'm sure the people who are watching are the same thing, right? Like, this could have been done 5 minutes ago if we were in person. But,
Yes. Yes.
yes.
And I feel like, again, when we are in person and I get to use my hands, I think that's going to feel weird at first. Maybe
Yeah.
not, but
Yes. It probably will. Too funny. Have there been any exercises that you've like, I won't say avoided, but like you dread teaching now because of this like format now? Just
oh,
because of what you just said a minute ago?
you know, the one that I was speaking of is I learned it as the twist on the Wonder chair. Basically, you're sitting in a teaser and
Yes.
that's the one that I was teaching. That I was like, wow,
Wow.
if I were there, this would be a lot easier.
Yes.
But no, there's not really anything that I guess I had a little too much empathy for the people that only had a mat when they did the neck pull. I was sort of like, sorry for you.
We'll just skip this.
Yeah, sorry. You still have to do it. I know it sucks.
Yes.
But nothing that I sort of shy away from due to Zoom.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. I hear you on that.
yeah,
Because it's like, it's one of those things that you almost have to just double down and recognize or appreciate the fact it's going to take you more time to unpack it. But at the same time, and like, this is probably my last kind of point on this, the retention for the client is greater because they have to think through the steps. If I'm putting them in that position, okay, and keep this shape and go, it's different than when they have to find it in their body, and because there's no one there to guide them to that spot, right? So they're actually getting the
yes.
exercise more from the inside out as opposed to tactilely from the outside in.
Yes. And I'm glad you said that, actually, from the inside out, because I feel like with independence comes a different kind of understanding, a different way that questions are formed. And that's been really satisfying as well, to see
Absolutely.
people understand and reiterate, say things about Pilates that I couldn't pay them to say better. So that's kind of cool.
Yes, absolutely. Roots Reach Pilates just mentioned that there are some really great motor learning research on that. Absolutely. Chelsea
Mm,
Corley, I've had her on, and she was talking about motor learning and that whole process, that thought process. I mean, she would speak to it so much better than I could, but basically everything we said for the last like 20 minutes is motor learning. Like,
oh, okay. Okay, cool.
effectively it
Learning
is.
by experience or learning by doing.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And it's that to the nth degree. Like, it's just speaking about how we internalize that and what the actual steps are, a process of understanding that learning pattern for
Oh
us.
yeah, I'm reading that when a client has to work things out themselves, they retain so much more. Yes, it's
Yes, there
so
you
true.
go. They care.
They care. Or they figure out why they should care, let's say.
Right, exactly. That's,
Yeah.
and that whole sense of them being educated on what a good workout looks like and what that should feel like in your body. And so when they're taking this to their practice time between sessions, hopefully, they
Hmm.
have a sense of what it's supposed to look like because of the way it feels from the inside out.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. One of the things that came up last week that I will be unpacking with Amit Younger later this week
Oh
is,
yes.
yeah, like those semi-private workouts. Trey Fry was talking about it last week as well, and Joel does as well. Like those Joe Gym workouts, as I've just kind of called them. Can
Yes.
you talk a little bit about that? Because you're doing those in an online format too, no?
Yes,
Or
yes.
okay, cool.
And
Yeah, please.
actually, online classes was one of the new things that happened because of this new way of being online. Because before, I never really had any luck with local clients coming to a class. I'd put them in my schedule and there just no one would come. So I'd be like, okay, I'm going to eat lunch.
Yes.
So having an online class or a class of any kind was a little bit of a new offering for me.
Right.
And I was really comfortable teaching one person online, but I wanted to kind of build up my confidence and my skill with teaching a small group online.
Yes.
Um, so I really like the format of the supervised group or the self-guided workout, let's say, where clients
Yes.
come, they work out themselves, they get a few tidbits of corrections, or what if you tried this exercise, some suggestions.
Hmm.
But really the point is that they get to move, and then maybe
Yes.
at the end there's time for questions or a stop fix kind of moment. But I have to say I've kind of started teaching some of my private lessons like that too, where
Okay.
they, or maybe I'm not changing. Maybe I'm just not talking as much, and that's what's happening. But I
They're
feel
just
like
getting really good, really, is what's
maybe
happening.
I'm just getting better. That's true.
Yes.
But I feel like they have that space to settle in, to move, to work out, to kind of set their intention and see how they're feeling as well before I weigh in on think about this. And sometimes one thought or one correction for a workout is enough, because we do
Mhm.
everything like we do everything, so it's going to apply to lots of stuff.
Right. Well said. Yeah. Roots Reach Pilates. Andrea, it is comforting to know that people ghosted your group classes too sometimes. You're a world-class teacher.
Oh,
That's
you're really
right.
kind.
So if world-class teachers can get ghosted, the rest of us, you can feel okay about yourself.
That's the thing, right? Like when you put it in your schedule and you're like, well, let's see.
Let's see what happens. Yes. You know, it's funny you say that because Cecile Elias was on here a while ago, and we were talking about what we called friend planting. And
Oh,
And it was just like, as a joke, we said it. So, okay, so let's say, for example, you're teaching a class. You reach out to some of your Pilates friends and tell them to come to your class. So it looks like your class is like full. So you can take your screenshots. You can say, great class
oh,
today.
right, right,
And
right.
then build that momentum. Like sometimes it just takes a busy class to make a busy class,
That's
right?
true. That's true. That's a great idea. I had not thought of that.
Yeah. So we called it friend planting.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, so I haven't really tried it, but like it was just a theory, and yeah. So if someone wants to give that a try, let me know what that looks like. Go for
Oh,
it.
I think we should all field test that.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
great.
Yes, but that's a real thing. Getting ghosted in classes is too funny. But we were talking though about just that investment, that return on investment when people start to take ownership of that. Can you talk a little bit more about that in terms of like your people and how that's been going?
Sure. I feel like in some ways, COVID has helped to enforce some of the policies I would like to enforce in my business that I wasn't able to do myself.
Okay.
With regard to people learning what they do and moving more independently. I did foster that when I had people in studio, but
Hmm.
I can be a little too helpful sometimes. I can, enable and I kind of forget that people will figure it out. I feel like
Yes.
sometimes you have to be calm and patient, and those are things that I always work toward. But
Yes.
let's say,
It's a very honest
uh,
assessment.
yeah. But
Yes.
but I feel like people's uh, like their ability to learn about themselves, about what they're capable of. And that I feel like that moment where you probably had a lesson or a class where you were asked to do something, or it suddenly you found yourself doing something that if someone had asked you if you could do that, you'd be like, oh no, I can't
No,
do
I
that at
can't.
all.
Yeah.
And I feel like those moments show up more when people um, are kind of more on their own, and they get the message that you know you try not to stop. Like maybe that's the correction for the day. Let's
Yes.
try to not stop today,
That's a
and
good
just keep
challenge.
going.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
yeah.
Do you, well, that makes me think about failure in general too, right? Because like we
Hmm.
have so many of our A-type personality people who are successful at work, they have their beautiful family, everything goes right in their world, and then we bring them into this Pilates space and we want to coddle them. I want to make sure that they're safe so that they don't feel bad about themselves if they can't achieve something. And
Yeah.
there needs to be a way that we can make it safe for them to fail at an exercise so that they can come back and try the next time. You know what I mean? Like, do you
Yeah.
ever set people up for failure, so to speak, in that way, challenging them over the top with something
Well, I know
safely?
that's actually the fear, right? Is that
Hmm.
when you embark on learning your exercises, even if when you come to the class that's and everyone tells you what to do, even if you've done it a million times, there's still the fear that if you're going to do it by yourself, you're going to make a mistake or you're not going to know something.
Right,
And I find it sometimes hard to let people know that that's really the best moment of learning. When
right.
you forget to change the spring, you get on the reform or you try to move the carriage and your body is like, whoa, that is not right. I don't know what I did, but
Mhm.
that's not. And so that you're learning by making mistakes and by experimenting. And I think that's a hard place in this unfamiliar Pilates studio that's kind of weird. And maybe they're not like totally confident of their physical
Yes,
selves,
right.
and
Yeah,
so I can see how that would make people, want to get it right. And
yes,
but it is a slow process. And I mean,
right.
even anything you want to change up in your workout, I feel like if I decide I want to do like a moment between differently or add
Hmm.
something in, I feel like I do that workout about 5 times where I forget to do it and go, oh yeah, I was going to do that thing.
Right.
I was going to put that in, but I forgot.
I forgot. Yes.
And then finally you get to the point where you're beyond the I'm going to put it in and I'm forgetting. That's like, right, I'm going to do that. But it might happen
Yes.
on day 10.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Right. It's true. And well,
Yeah.
it's all communication too, right? And I'm thinking
True.
about from the perspective of in those situations when I'm teaching someone and I want to throw something in, instead of like I've been watching my words lately, and even in some of the classes I've been taking, how people are teaching me. When I get to a place where it's an exercise where I don't think they can do it, but I want to kind of push the envelope so they can kind of break through to something, my
Hmm.
my my words change from, say for example, lift your leg or engage this or move that to can you lift your leg, like almost in a
Oh,
curious, like
yes.
I can you do this, I wonder if what would happen if, you know what I
The
mean?
what would
So
happen if is I love that. I so love
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yes, those what would happen if or can you sort of thing, so they know that there's a possibility that you're not going to be able to do this, but let's try it anyways.
Yeah, but let's see. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so
Yeah.
just safely putting those challenges out there for our people.
Yeah, and I like that. I feel like that's happened a little bit more with in the online world. Like, what would happen if you or if I were doing this? Like, that's a really I like that too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. We got to keep people moving. And I've recognized that with this time, this quarantine, which was supposed to be like 2 weeks ago, like every 2 weeks and then a month, and then,
Right.
we're creeping up on a year. There had to be this paradigm shift from like, this is just a stopgap. Let's just do some online in the meantime to, okay, we need to start working here on these onlines. Like we need to still progress. You still have a
Yes.
goal, and now that goal has to be achieved online. So it's not like we'll just do this in the meantime until we get back. We have to now figure out how we can actually progress in these,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. And that was a big lesson too.
Yes.
Yes.
How did you communicate that lesson to people?
Oh, well, again, I feel like the Pilates method did a little bit of it for me.
Mhm.
Well, a lot of it for me. So I had my clients that were in studio that are normal, regular people that are not teachers. I have like maybe a handful of really super diligent people,
Okay.
and they did not have any apparatus at home. One person eventually bought a reformer, but most people just had a mat, you know, like a yoga mat or several yoga mats.
Yes.
We devised some household objects to sub in for a strap and handles
Okay.
sometimes if
Yeah.
that was possible. And we did the mat exercises, all the ones they did. We supplemented with the people that had the Bosu. We made it a small barrel
Okay.
so they could do the mat and the barrel.
Yes.
But they pretty much did the mat
Yes.
once or twice a week for a year.
Yes,
And
you'll see progress doing that.
yeah, and there was part of me that, you know, thought at the beginning, I was like, oh, but the people that struggle with like the teaser and the things that we always use the apparatus for to, you know, have them segue in from the Cadillac to the reformer to the mat, you know, that for more success, I was like, is this going to be solved with a prop, with a cushion and a, you know, a rag, a bone, and a hank of hair? Like, what are we going to do?
Sound like MacGyver, some duct tape and a Q-tip, and we'll get them there.
And so I kept thinking, like, I'm going to have to get creative and do some reformer on the mat or make up something. You know, I sort of thought, I didn't know how that was going to go. And then one day I just sort of saw that the repetition had like whittled away at that problem a little bit, those problem exercises.
Right.
And I was like, oh, it's all going to be fine. So they're really, really good at the mat. They do nearly every exercise.
So funny.
So,
yes,
you know, and it's been really a teacher as well as, you know, teaching me about the method too, I gotta say.
Absolutely. That's making us so much sharper. Like, you feel like a parent and you're like, well, I could have taught this kid to walk like 6 weeks ago. Like, why did I let them stay in there? You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing, right? Like they probably could have done it before and we never really pushed them out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, the power of doing this, the same thing or working on the same things over and over again, they do get better.
Yes, I love that, and that speaks to the power of the system of Pilates. If you look behind me, I have like my reformer tower, I have a tower, and then I have my ladder barrel right here, and I have a chair at home, which I haven't actually brought into my studio, and I haven't done the chair in 10 months, 11 months. But, you know, just because I'm in here all the time and trying to build this. And then the other day I was just playing on the chair and doing some exercises and they were so much easier. Like just like all these exercises were so much easier. And I haven't touched a chair in months, but because I've been in the system with repetition elsewhere in the work, those exercises have gotten easier as if I was doing those exercises on the chair week in, week out.
Oh, yes. And I'm excited to see all the people that are really just have a mat. Like when we come back to the studio, I'm interested to see what their reformer looks like and, you know, what other skills are going to translate from the mat.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like that'll be pretty fun to see for everyone.
Absolutely. Emmett Younger says, I find that people who committed to the online classes have made amazing progress. It actually took me by surprise in some cases.
Yes. Yes.
That's true. And his classes are so fun. I can't say his classes. I've done one of his classes and it was really good. I can't brag like I do them every week. Tab Pilates, I've actually had greater success in progressing as mat workouts from home than has created great attendance. Yeah, so like doing the mat people are progressing doing the mat work for sure.
Yeah.
Love it. How did you find Pilates? Like, when did you get to this Pilates world in the first place?
Well, this is a wonderful question, Martin. And then I have one. I want to ask the same of you as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So my formal education is in the theater. And one year I was in a play where I was supposed to be Shakespeare's muse. It was a new play that was talking about Shakespeare, viewing how his legacy would be received by future generations. And I was playing the part of Shakespeare's muse, and the concept for the production was that art is a cruel mistress. And so let's just say I was costumed in, you know, vinyl and not very much of it. And I didn't really have like anything I did for fitness at the time, but I knew that I needed to wear this outfit and pretend like I did that all the time and be confident and strut about the stage. And I thought, I need to get it
I
together.
need something.
So,
That's too funny.
so
Yes.
a friend of mine who was also an actress, who was also in a play wearing a revealing costume, she won. Hers was more revealing than mine. She said, "Oh, I do Pilates here." She brought me brochures from the local studio that she went to, and she said, "Here, you should go to take Pilates class." And to be perfectly honest, I had done a lot of yoga for fitness, but
Hmm.
I really didn't know what Pilates was. And she had brought me a brochure for a mat class, and I realized that that was the most affordable way to do Pilates as an actor.
Hmm.
And so I signed up for a class to go to take a mat class. And I sort of thought, well, I've done yoga, it's on a mat.
It'll be
How
easy.
different could it be?
Yes.
So
Famous last words.
famous last words. So
Yes.
I have to say that this was a class that was done in like a 6 weeks course of levels. This was
Okay.
at Excel Pilates in Washington D.C. If anyone's shout out to them.
Okay.
And so I went to take the class, and so we were only going to visit. I didn't know this. We were going to visit 7 exercises in an hour, but I didn't know that.
Right.
And I remember we did the 100, and I sort of thought like, oh, that's interesting. And then I couldn't do the roll up at all because I didn't know that my back was
Mm.
stiff until I took a mat class. and
Right.
and I just kept thinking, well, this seems really, I mean, I'm on a mat, but they're very specific about what I should be doing and what I should be
Hmm.
using. And they're not speaking in the same way as teachers in a yoga class speak. So I knew that it was different.
Different.
Yeah. And I would see people on the apparatus, and I'd watch them. I always did dance and gymnastics as a kid. And so one day I was trying, I couldn't roll up, and I was like lying on the floor in the mat class, and way across the studio, there was a teacher working out, and she did the control balance where you roll off and stand up and roll
Yes.
back on. And I was like, wow, that looks exciting.
Yes.
So I thought, well, if I have to pay my dues over here and learn how to roll up, but later I could do that, okay.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
That strategy doesn't work for everybody, but there are competitive souls out there that need to see the gold star exercise way down the road and will chase after it. And then there's other people that see that gold star exercise and think like, well, this whole system's not for me because
Well, I
right,
kind of feel like I stuck with it because I was stubborn and I couldn't do the second exercise in the mat class. And I was
right,
like, I'm 29 years old. I feel like I should probably be able to roll up. So, and now I
right.
can. So that's
Okay,
exciting.
good to know. Congratulations.
Yes. But Martin,
Yes.
how I'm always, I'm a big advocate of men embracing this fitness method that's developed by a man on his own body, for as a health system. And I'm always wondering what brings men or does not bring men to do Pilates. So I would love to know how you came to it as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was working, well, there's kind of two parts to the story. One, I was playing football in high school and university, and I hurt my back. And they couldn't really figure out what it was, but going to a chiro really helped.
Mm.
And I had a friend who was a massage therapist who was also a Pilates instructor. So she was doing group classes for Pilates. And the more I was going to these Pilates classes, the less I had to go to the chiro.
Mm.
Right. So there was this time of like, I was going to the chiro like 3 times a week. And then I was going like once a week. And then it was like every other week. And then it was like once a month because I was doing so much Pilates. And that Pilates was like my rehab. It's like prehab instead of rehab. Right.
Yes, yes.
So then I took a Pilates class. It's just a mat interest, special interest for myself, just to figure that out. And then fast forward like another 10 years, I was a personal trainer. I'm in fitness
Mm.
and all that stuff. And then I had an opportunity to do like my peak Pilates, like the full comprehensive. And I knew what Pilates was from back in the day, but now my perspective was, well, I'm a personal trainer, and there's a ton of personal trainers out there, but not a lot of personal trainers know how to do Pilates, right? So then there's
Hmm.
that competitive edge. And then layer into it that I'm a guy. There's no men doing Pilates that I've seen anywhere, so that'll help me. And then layer in the fact that I am a black man. I saw no visible minorities. There's no brothers teaching Pilates whatsoever. So I figured all of these things were going to give me a competitive edge in this fitness world to have this. and I knew how good it felt to my body, and I wish that I had been doing it before I played football, because who knows where I would have went with it. So that was my thing. I realized that it was a game changer for me personally, and there was no other men in it. So I kind of made it my mission to get men introduced to Pilates and to realize that this could be a missing link for them, whether it's from a performance standpoint to help them in their sport, basketball, football, whatever, or if they're a weekend warrior, right? Like for those guys who are like corporate guys who want to still play hockey with their buddies and be the fittest 50-year-old out there, Pilates can be that. So I feel like that's really my message, and why I came up with that handle. I didn't come up with it, but I really just embraced the handle Real Men Do Pilates to knock over that stigma that is for dancers and for women only. It's by a man, for men, design, you know what I mean? Design with men in mind. So yeah, I talked to that, like, to, your athletic stance as a athlete. Every sport has an athletic stance, and every one of those compromises your hip flexors. So how do we open that up? How do we strengthen your back? How do we give you that mobility? And so I speak it in their language, and it makes sense to guys. So
oh, that's great. Yeah, because you want to get everything to work, so that not just the popular muscles.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I've noticed that I've been in sort of like, in not so much recently, but when, in errand mode and meeting people conversationally, like at the bank or at the doctor's office, at any place where invariably the subject of what do you do? Or, there's a form like oh, you're a Pilates instructor. It always comes up. And I feel like invariably, and I don't know if this is a US thing, if men in other countries, if there are more men doing Pilates in other countries other than the US. But I feel like, the response to you're a Pilates instructor is, oh, my wife does Pilates.
Yes.
And I always say, well, it was invented by a man for men, so you should really do Pilates. And then usually the answer I get is like, oh, but I don't have time. I don't have time to do that.
Right.
So,
yes.
I see. But it's good for your wife.
Yes. No, exactly. Yeah. So as soon as I put that up, so Pilates, Misty says, I need you to talk to my husband. Right. And popular muscles. And, but when you say that, and people say, oh, it's for dancers and all those different things, I usually respond and say, yes, but did you know that LeBron James does Pilates?
Yes, LeBron James. Yep.
Right. I mean, and I start to just Antonio Brown. Like, you start to quote these athletes that do that, and then after that, even in social media, then people have said, well, people will pull up like Real Men Do Pilates to get pictures of myself, and I'll put on. Yep. Kevin Pilates Dwell. I'll put his stuff up.
Yes.
And then look, he's got like young baseball players on there, and he's working with young athletes.
Players. The very famous baseball player.
Yeah, I can't remember his name right now either.
Exactly. I'm not a baseball fan, but
yeah, exactly.
Cy Young Award.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I read the article too, and I don't know his name either.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the baseball players, the pitchers, man. Oh, they need Pilates so much.
Right? Especially those one-sided sports. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. So those are the things. So like the more we get those images out, the more we have those conversations, the more that becomes a more normalized thing. But yeah, that's it. So that alone is my real mission. Like, someone else can teach all the advanced exercises, and they can do, whatever it is. But I really feel like me in this skin as a non-dancer male Pilates person, there's a whole segment of the population that dismisses Pilates that I can speak to.
Yes. I see that Amit was saying that's the same everywhere.
Yes. And right. And Chris is,
do you think it's also there's a barrier because it's...
Oh, there's Jake Aretta.
Oh, Jake Arrieta, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kara. We're dying over here. Thank you so much, Kara. Sorry, you were going to say.
Oh, I was going to say that, do you think that, and this is not a comment on gender in any way, but do you think there's the barrier for some people is that you have to check in to your workout versus I feel like traditional fitness, and please correct me if I'm wrong, allows us to check out when we work out?
Yes. To some degree, yes. And I like that you mentioned that, because that is one of the things I used to appeal to men with it, right? Because at the same time that you could use that power for good or for evil, right? So
okay. Tell me.
well, men think of it like this, like, okay, my squat or my bench press, I did 185 pounds this week, next week I'm going to do 195 pounds. Like it's so
Mm.
linear, and I can just look at the numbers and just recognize that there's progress. So when we come into this Pilates space, now we're challenging them to think a little bit more, to be more intentional with their workout. So where do we
And we're
see
talking about like the
progress?
quality of
Yes,
execution, I guess.
exactly, exactly. So guys, it sounds so typical, but guys are looking for gains. Like, what are my
Mm.
gains? What are my gains on this? So when we can start getting them to think about those gains as not being quantitative, but qualitative gains, then it starts to make sense that people are really trying to get better at what they do, right? So
Okay.
I can get stronger in my weakest links. Like there's
Yeah.
Chad Benson's,
Yeah.
right? So I use that line all the time, get stronger your weakest link. So I can do, if my bench press is a certain number, and then there's one little tiny muscle in here that's hindering me from getting up to the next weight, then I need to just peel back all that stuff and work on that mobility, work on that stability, whatever it
Mm.
is. And then I can go back to my bench and my bench will go up again. So if I can find balance in this Pilates space, it is going to help them get better in everything else that they do, which is
Right.
really the message of Pilates, right? Like
Right.
we
Right.
don't do Pilates to get better at Pilates. We do Pilates to get better at the things that we want to do in the rest of our
Right.
life.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
why we care.
That's why we care, right?
Yeah.
So that's how that message comes in of working in to get out. Like this is where we dive deep on the minutia of a movement so that you could perform better on the field, on the ice,
Yeah, so it'll be
in
there
the
for
workplace.
you
So it'll be there
more
for you.
automatically. Yeah.
Yep.
I
Yep.
guess automatically.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the shtick, right? Like that really is
Yeah.
my thing for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds great.
Yeah. And Bluebird Pilates agrees.
Yeah.
And Krista also works with skaters, right? So the sale point would be the ease of lifting that weight. And yes, exactly.
Yes.
Right? Because I mean, like, don't train for something, train for everything. Right?
Right.
Exactly. My and for myself, just as an athlete, I always think performance first. Right? I'm not worried about
Mm.
aesthetics. If I like, do I have a six pack? If I'm running a 5 second 40 and have a six pack, I don't care. If I can run a 4-4 and have a one pack, that's impressive to me. So you
Mm.
have to really speak performance with people that care about performance, and whatever their podium performance is across the board. Your podium performance can be chasing your grandkids all day and not having to sit in bed for 3 days
Right.
afterwards,
Or cooking all day long,
or
or
cooking all day, or
right.
gardening, like moving soil from the
Right.
front of your house to your back of your house. Like that's a podium performance. So if we
Yes.
can speak to people and say, this is going to help you to be able to do whatever you want to do with ease all day long and not have to pay for it 4 days later with aspirin and, watching
Yeah.
Netflix because you can't move,
Yeah.
then that's the power of Pilates for you, right?
That is so true. Yeah. I like to say eyes on the prize. Like
Eyes on the
in an
prize, my
hour, it's going
friend.
to be amazing.
Yes. Got me all excited about this. Like, this is like, I'm going to work out again today after this.
I
So this
know.
is
I know. I'm super excited to do the mat today after our talk.
This is awesome. I love the fact that people in the comment section are saying like you're a world-class teacher. You've been in this game for a
That's
while.
wow.
Like,
That's really like you do me great honor because I feel like the more you learn about Pilates, the more or anything where there is so much to learn. I feel like
yes,
you continually learn how much there is to learn as well.
yes, right. That's only said of the things that we care about learning about.
True. True.
Right?
Yeah. That's true. We could
Right?
step off at any point. Is that
We
what you
could
were
step off the train whenever we like.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But I feel like it keeps you going. Like the always the extra carrot
Yeah, oh, for sure.
out in front.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's why we're in this. Like we love our people, we love this work. And I really feel like, we're really fueled by our love
Oh,
for our
thanks,
people,
Joel.
right? We learn the great word.
That's very sweet.
Yes. Right. So, and because we love our people, that's what sends us back to another course to learn more or to understand more about a movement, because we want to always have more for them. You know what I mean? So all these things all just tie into it. And yeah,
Yeah.
Hmm. Great. Good stuff. And that's 57 minutes. That's
Oh
crazy
my
how
gosh,
fast
really?
it goes. Yes,
Wow.
I'm looking at the time like, oh, okay, can't ask you anything else. Like,
Oh
we
wow.
have to
That
do
was,
this
oh my
again.
gosh, that was such a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you to everyone who's been like in the space
Yeah,
here,
thank
just
you
like
so much
cheering.
for watching and for inviting me, Martin. This was a lovely conversation.
Absolutely, I really enjoyed it. All right, well, I will sign you off. I'll send you a message later with our replay, and
Oh, that's great.
yeah, and we'll get things going. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Awesome, you too. Take care.
Bye.